Welcome back, friends, to Divine Feminine Radio. Yes, blah, 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 blah. I'm gonna try that again. Welcome back, friends, to Divine Feminine Radio, your weekly sanctuary for feminine wisdom in a masculine world. Yes, we rebranded. Life is about evolution. We hope you enjoy it. I'm your host, Ronnie Kala. So excited to have Tamara Rose back at the studio today. If this is your first time joining us, Tamara has been deconstructing the Divine Feminine for over 15 years. She's the founder of the Divine Success Method and also my sister. Today we're diving into a powerful conversation about health, well-being, and healing in our bodies through the full spectrum of divine feminine energy. Because contrary to what we've been taught, the divine feminine is not just soft and sweet. It's also fierce, bold disruption, and the honoring of all energies that flow through us. Tamara, I feel like you are the perfect person to talk to about this today. You are probably the fiercest and boldest person that I know.
You're like, sometimes you can be a real bitch. Yeah, let's talk about it.
I mean, I won't say that, but
right.
I think in a patriarchal world, bold women have been branded as bitches. So
100%. Look, I'm remodeling my kitchen house. I'm experiencing it every day where men are so sensitive to direct communication. And I'm sure they all walk away talking about how I'm a bitch.
Exactly. Well, let's open it up with divine feminine energy isn't always soft. How did you first learn that? On your journey of deconstructing the divine feminine, you started with this ontological masculine approach of learning things. You moved into more male-female dynamics, and then you moved into feminine energy and what that encompasses and what that embodies. So how did you first learn that distinction?
I think it was with my spiritual teacher, frankly, because when we go through that line and that lineage, it was with my spiritual teacher, who was the first person who ever talked about energy and around me and was like, well, you see this and I just see energy. And I was like, huh? And there was energy clearing, and I was like, gosh, I want to do that. And I did all the courses I could with my spiritual teacher. And then I also did all the courses I could with Access Consciousness. And Access Consciousness has a distinction, which is around being willing to be any energy. And so those two modalities, being in them at the same time, I think is what really allowed me to embrace any energy and look at the multiple layers of what divine feminine is. So when we look at the divine feminine, the course that I had done previously to that, where I was learning male-female dynamics, was actually in the patriarchal system, and I didn't know it. I wasn't clued into it. And that one was where we're going to be soft. And what do men need? And let's understand men. It was literally called Celebrating Men, Satisfying Women. And, and it was it just felt very manipulative dealing with men, right? You could manipulate men. I was like, this not suit. I mean, I could say anything to get men to do anything, but that doesn't feel good. Right? Men should be freed up to do whatever they're going to do, regardless of how I'm going to say something to manipulate them to do it. Right? That's an agenda. And then my spiritual teacher was all about these Hindu goddesses, so Lakshmi is the goddess of abundance, and Saraswati is the goddess of education and music. And then you get into Kali Ma, and Kali Ma is the fierce goddess of removing the obstacles and removing patterns. And so Kali Ma is depicted with skulls around her neck, right? And I remember when I would do work with my spiritual teacher, and my ex-husband would come into a room and we would chant things for Kali Ma, or we would chant things for Lakshmi, or we would chant for Ganesha, we would chant Jewish chants and Christian chants, and we would do all the chants. There was no chant we wouldn't do, but my ex-husband seeing the room full of white people chanting, all he could think of was, I think it was Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh my gosh.
Or whatever it was way back in the day, Harrison Ford, the
Indiana Jones, yeah.
Yeah. And it was an opening scene, and they rip a heart out and everybody chants and he's like, that's what it's like. And I'm like, that is literally not what it's like. That is not depicted, but they they were putting an offer to Kali Ma actually in the scene. So like it was actually very connected. It was just wrongfully connected.
Yeah.
So Kali Ma is this essence of like fierce removal of like your ego, your obstacle, right? And then I underwent a training to focus on Mary Magdalena energy. And I did that for a full year, embodying Mary Magdalena. And this was before Mary Magdalena became like a thing, you know, like it came after there was a whole group of us like anchoring in the energies, which is also fascinating energetically. However, I digress.
Because Mary Magdalene wasn't considered a saint or prophet until maybe 10 years ago.
So 10 years ago, around 10 years ago, was when I was doing a lot of Mary Magdalena energies. So meditating with Mary Magdalena, doing hands-on healing techniques, and then receiving the initiation of Mary Magdalena energy from my guru. And it was a full year-long process of embodying and like, who is Mary Magdalena? And yeah, at that time, Mary Magdalena with the Catholic Church was depicted as a whore, was depicted as all the negative depictions of women back in that day, which is basically patriarchy and men, reframing history for what works best for them. Do you see what I'm saying? But like when you really start to unpack the Mary Magdalena frequencies and Mary Magdalena's path, and there was a book that I read that I loved, and I recommend anybody who even knows anything about Jesus Cristo, or like you're interested in Mary Magdalena. It's called I Remember Union. It is by Flo Aviva, who I actually got to interview on a podcast one time, which was really great. And Flo Aviva channeled Mary Magdalena's story, Mary Magdalena message, and Flo is like direct. I think there's like a second book out. She's doing healing stuff. Like she is one of the first people who've ever like altruistically channeled the Mary Magdalena frequencies. Anyways, as you start to unpack Mary Magdalena as an embodiment of an energy, a walking ascended master, if you will, or like an ascended master who has ascended, what you start to find is Mary Magdalena was fierce in two things. And this is what I always love teaching is like, be a no if you're a no, and be a yes if you're a yes. And don't compromise those two for yourself. Like it's a fierce alignment practice. And that's like a no holds bar kind of alignment. That's like a really altruistic way to be. And like for me, I feel like that feels very divinely embodied. So if we were going to talk about divine feminine, I go back to that. Just like fiercely be a no if you're a no. Don't compromise. Don't make yourself smaller. Don't make yourself like, if you're a no, be a no. And if you're a yes, be a yes. But like be altruistic in your alignment. And I think that opens up the opportunity to then not be small or not be quiet or, be fierce in whatever the alignment is for you, if you will.
Gotcha. And do you mean altruistic or authentic?
You tell me. What the fuck did I say?
You said altruistic. And I'm like, altruistic, like...
Authentic.
Okay. Okay, great.
Better. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sometimes I just say words and we're
Sometimes...
like, is that the right word? Who knows? Do y'all know what I mean? Or are you picking up what I'm saying? Both.
I picked it out of your brain. I got it for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So when you're talking about being any energy, like what specifically do you mean by that?
I think when we put our labels on what we don't want women to be, like we don't want women to be big energies. We don't want them to be know-it-alls. We don't want them to be difficult. We don't want, like, you could go in, we definitely don't want to be a bitch. We don't want to take up too much space. Like all of those have been trained inside of the patriarchal framework to undervalue and disvalue us. Whether it's systematic or not, whether it was intentional or not. And so you have a lot of women walking around being pretzels, frankly. Like I need to stop over here, and then I have to stop over here, and then I have to be this over here, and da-da-da-da. And like women are exhausted, right? Like burnout rates are at an all-time high, and we have issues with our endocrine system and our hormones, and like we have health issues related to the fact that like we're not embodying every energy. We have to be the energy that works for other people. And we were trained in that like very young. And so when you say like, are you willing to be any energy? Like, it's probably not bitchy energy, but we've labeled anything that's like not go with the flow as bitchy. And so then the question can be like, are you willing to be a bitch? Like, are you willing to be bitchy? Are you willing to be loud? Are you willing to cause a scene? Are you willing to do that? And if the answer is no, you have to ask yourself why. Because if you're not willing to do that, you're literally being framed by some patriarchal like system. Sometimes you need to be bitchy. Sometimes you need to cause a scene. Sometimes you need to be loud. God, I hope every woman fucking takes up a lot of space. You know what I mean? Like, choose you, do you, because nobody else is going to do it for you.
And I feel like you have examples coming out of your ears for what that looks like in particular. Like,
I sure do. I got stories. I got examples. Yep. I'm a walking, talking, breathing, be any energy kind of lady.
and it's so interesting to be an observer of your life because I'll catch you, like, we talk on the phone like multiple times a day, and I'll catch you like midday and you're like, yes, like I'm so good. Like I'm sitting in my bathtub, and like you'll like whisper to me on the phone, and you're like
You
relaxed
get a
and
whisper
chill.
message.
And then like another part of the day, halfway through the day, you may be like yelling at your ex-husband to get off your lawn or some shit like that. And there's like this range of emotion or energy or that you just completely embody differently, and you're not boxed into one thing. You allow yourself to be any energy.
Yeah, the whole gamut. And I'm probably the most healthy person walking around. I don't keep anything inside. Let all that shit out.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I'm very conscious about the energies that I choose too. So
yeah. Tell me
I
more
think
about
there's a
that.
difference when we're unconscious and we're releasing our traumas from the past on other people, and you're unleashing your shit, and people are like, "Oh, I'm speaking my truth." I'm like, "No, you're not. You're word vomiting on people. Like, stop it." That's
So what would you say is the difference and the intention behind them?
I know when I'm out to change an energy, right? So there's a consciousness, like I'm fully embodied consciousness, meaning there's rarely something that happens where I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about how that would affect you. I'm like pretty clear every step I take how it's going to alter my reality. And that's just from practice. So I know, if there's a reason for me to go to court and pursue some sort of lawsuit, like I'm clear. I'm not in a reaction state. I'm not doing it because I have like unhealed traumas with my mother. I'm not doing it because I'm wounded from my brother. I'm not doing it because my ex-husband hurt my feelings. I'm like, like I am always in a very clear state of actions, why I'm taking them, what's on the other side, who's involved. And then also part of my path is a lot of times, people come into my purview in order to learn things as well. And I facilitate learning. And some of that facilitation of learning is me causing a scene or me yelling or me, doing a lawyer. But like, I don't get attached in the drama of it either. So like if you get attached into the drama of it, it becomes your story. This becomes your identity. That's like reliving traumas, essentially. I'll just be like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing now. Yelled at my
So,
ex-husband. He's got to get
yeah.
his ass off the lawn. That's like not acceptable. And it's not like I go from like, oh, I saw my ex-husband and he's here, and I start yelling at him. It's like I ask, he doesn't listen. I raise my voice. I tell him he's never allowed here again. Shit, like what's it going to take for me to establish the outcome, the trajectory, and the energy that I'm interested in living in? And so like, I think we talked about this on our client call this week, or maybe it was last week. We kind of talked about like peace. Or maybe I just made that up.
Yes,
Maybe I'm living in, we talked about it. Okay. I'm
we
like,
did.
am I living in another timeline? We talked about peace. And a lot of times what we think is peace is like, I need to make everything peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
That is not peace. I can experience peace anywhere I go, regardless of the circumstances. Yes. Do I alter my reality to have more peace? Yes. And I'm also willing to be any energy to construct a peaceful reality, which
Mm-hmm.
means sometimes yelling at the ex-husband, get the fuck off my lawn, and tell him he's never willing to, like, you can't ever come back. Why? Because this house is peace. What you doing ain't that.
Mm-hmm.
Time to
And
go.
one other thing you brought up was the tolerance level that women tend to have when it comes to their peace. Like we have a very, is it a low or a high tolerance? Like we have a very high tolerance for uh,
Bullshit.
bullshit, drama, chaos, like things that
Yeah.
come in our field, meaning that we allow it so much so, and we're like, oh, okay, like it just happens, or like it, nothing we can do about it, or just the allowance of it in the field rather than being willing to do something about it, being willing to disrupt it and change it, right? And I think that's what you're communicating inside of being any energy, and being willing to hold to your peace and hold to
Mm-hmm.
your, like, the things that you want to experience, whether it's peace or relaxation or however you want your reality to show up, having a low tolerance for the bullshit that is not that.
Yeah. I mean, look, one of the things, being a white woman, oh, are you going to be a Karen? Don't be Karen. Like, that's like a new thing, right?
Yeah.
And I remember my ex-husband's son was like, you're like, one day you're like, you're not going to be Karen. You're not going to become a Karen one day.
Your
I was like,
ex-husband's son?
or my ex-boyfriend's son. Sorry. Thank you. What timeline am I in? I'm in some timeline today. I'll tell you what. My ex-boyfriend's son, he was like, well, I just hope you don't become a Karen one day. And I was like, dude, I can't predict how you're going to respond to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like something like that may take women. Like, I don't want to be a Karen, so I'm going to be super nice. I don't want to occur as a bitch, so I'm going to be super nice. And that placation creates fuck all,
Mm-hmm.
and it just creates more of the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little bit like, yeah, look, I'm willing. And like when we broke up, he's like, I knew you were going to turn into a Karen. I was like, you got some stuff over there going on, kid, about women
About
and
Karens.
Karens. Like, it's not my thing.
But I have seen on TikTok now, like, women who use their Karen powers for good, like
Right.
calling their government offices or politicians or things like that. And they're like, comments are like, oh, if women use their Karen powers for good or something like that. So
Yeah, but
there
look,
is something coming
Karen's
around
just
about the energy.
100%. Like, Karen's just a judgment.
Yeah.
Bitchy is just a judgment. And like when I popped off in the middle of the food court in my neighborhood at this dude who was local who was acting like a complete douchebag, and I'm like, I like looked at him while he was talking to me, and I was silent for a long time, and I was just like, he talks to other people like this. He thinks it's okay to talk to people like this. He's probably talking to women like this. And I'm like, this isn't okay. And I told him, I looked him straight in the face, and I was like, I'm about to lose my shit on you right now in this building. I'm about to make the biggest fucking scene you've ever seen. Like, I was so conscious that I'm like, this is about to go down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm unwilling to have you talk to me like that. And then I did, and everybody, I caused a big ass scene. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should do that more often sometimes. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
very liberating.
I can see how it would be, yes. Can you imagine keeping that inside and never saying something about it? I'm sure you may not imagine, but other women may imagine.
I mean, look, I grew up with passive aggressive parents. I was initiated into passive aggressiveville at a very young age. We didn't talk about stuff. You don't talk about feelings. You don't have straight communication. That was all very normal. But through my evolution,
Mm-hmm.
learning what happens, like you keep that shit in and it festers. We
Mm-hmm.
have lots of cancer. We have lots of autoimmune diseases. And autoimmune disease is literally your body attacking itself.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that strange? We don't look at the energy of it. We just take a bunch of fucking pills and like hope it's going to be okay. But we
Mm-hmm.
don't address the root cause that you're attacking yourself or you're making yourself wrong or like you're not letting your energy out,
Mm-hmm.
in a constructive, conscious way.
So, how would you say the energy that you're embodying or not embodying is connected to your health and well-being, like in that example, like autoimmune diseases?
Well, one of my favorite books that we read on our call this week.
Mm.
So for everybody listening,
Story time with Tamara.
I know we've already had one book. The second book is Sarah by Abraham Hicks. Abraham Hicks is is masterful at the channeling of, well, Esther Hicks is channeling Abraham, right? But there's a masterful channeling of like our divinity and our truest nature. And our divinity and our truest nature is actually well-being. So I've read Life and Teachings of Masters of the Far East. You can read Yogananda's autobiography. When you start to read the autobiographies of these ascended masters and you start looking at how they live, you could even do like the Aborigines. One of my first books was also phenomenal. It was Mutant Messages from Down Under. It was like how the Aborigines live. And with all these books, it's like having a third party come into their life to tell the story of how they live. Okay. And so in all of these examples, and also Jesus Cristo, he's my faves too. It was like the natural healing process, the higher consciousness. When you're in the higher consciousness levels, if you're in the higher frequency, we could say as well, you have access to the natural healing capacities and abilities of the body. So when you're in a lower frequency, lower consciousness, you're not going to have access then, or you're going to disrupt the natural healing process. And so everybody calls it a little differently, right? So if you're going to read Life and Teachings of Masters of the Far East, they're going to call it Christ consciousness. If you read about Aborigines, they're going to have just like, this is how it is. If you read anything from Esther / Abraham Hicks, it's going to be like plugged into well-being is how it would be described. Okay. They're all saying the same thing, which is
in different ways. Yeah.
Say that again.
Same thing in different ways. Yeah.
100%, which is you are healed and you will be healed. The things we do as humans disrupt the natural healing state. So if you are like, I can't express myself or I have these hidden traumas, they are inherently in your body. And that in your body disrupts the natural healing state. Your negative frequency and your negative thoughts of the negative outcomes will disrupt the healing state. So there's all these things that like, if it's really like easy, it's like you've got love and you've got fear. And if you're in the fear state, the scarcity state, the life is hard and shit is hard and this is terrible and I have to deal with it. Like all that is the negative frequency. What's going to manifest in you is not well-being. Mm-hmm. Like if you're in the high frequency and you are connected to source and you are connected to God or you are connected to Christ consciousness or you are in that state, then everything will naturally heal itself. Mm-hmm. And then there are things that we do to like either accommodate the healing or progress the dis-ease in the body.
So how does that, as far as what's the word I'm looking for? Like progressing the healing process, getting the energies out of your body so that you can be a clear channel for well-being.
Mm-hmm.
How is that something we can forward more quickly? Like, are there things like Reiki or things like naturopathic doctor? Like,
Bonnie, you know better. I have a program for that.
oh, okay, cool.
But look, this is like, first and foremost is always getting to the root. Okay. What is the root of the issue? What is the root of the quote unquote dis-ease? And when you look at it and you get to it, that's usually like step one. Okay. So if you have traumas from childhood, or, how many women have been told like, we don't have the right size body. We don't look the right size. The boobs aren't the right size. The butt's not the right size. The waist isn't the right size. The hair color is definitely not the right hair color. Better not have any acne. Nothing can be unproportionate to whatever the male gaze says should be.
Mm-hmm.
So energetically, we have consumed that energy. We think that energy is the right energy. We make that reality right. And then we make us wrong for anything else that's happening. So like step one is you want to get to the root energy. That's going to be patriarchal energy. That's going to be whatever your mother said to you when you were a child, whatever your father said to you when you were a child, whatever your first boyfriend or whatever the kids in middle school said to you when you were growing up. Like all of those things are part of the energy field.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So first you have to get to the root. The other thing is like really calming the nervous system. Like I can't talk enough about regulating your nervous system. So we have, you have EMFs, electronics, we have social media, we have, we sit in front of a computer all day and then we're on our phone all day and then things are pinging at us all day. Like we are completely dysregulated. Okay. And you get sucked down all these rabbit holes because you're completely dysregulated. And then we call it ADHD and ADD. And like, we don't disconnect. We just keep plugged in, overrun.
There's stimuli always running in some way, shape, or form.
100%. So the regulation of the nervous system, the calming of the nervous system on a deep cellular level will also promote the healing, right? Mm-hmm. So you get to the root traumas, we clear those out, and then you get to the, you just start to tend to the nervous system in a completely new way, and now you have something new emerge.
Mm-hmm. I like just poking the bear a little bit to get some new answers out of you, that's all.
I mean, poke away.
Awesome. Well, as we're talking about well-being and divine feminine energy and how they coincide together,
mm-hmm.
how do you sense they coincide together as far as like the more that you're in your divine feminine energy and the more that you're honoring your well-being and what that actually looks like in real time?
Well, I think they dance really beautifully together because dis-ease, I mean, it's the patriarchy system. Jesus Christ. Like, how many times we've got to talk about it, But it's like dis-ease, that there's something wrong, that we have to fix it. Mm-hmm. How many men do you know just like want to fix shit? And they're always talking about like what's wrong so they can fix it and then they have value. And like that's just in our life and in our structure. The fact that we are inherently well-being, that we are connected to the wellness flow is outlandish as a concept. No way. Because it's so ingrained that there's something wrong. We need to fix it. Mm-hmm. Okay. The divine feminine is in essence that flow, that magic, that connection to source, that connection to Gaia, that connection to the magic, the ether. Like we have a portal between our legs that makes babies. Like what in the, that is some magical bullshit stuff. That's like, what? Okay. So like they are actually inherently connected. Mm-hmm. To see yourself as whole, complete, beautiful, well, that there is nothing wrong. And not just that there is nothing wrong, that is like sheer perfection incarnated. Mm-hmm. Like, what? And that's like divine feminine, like the highest peak of it.
And it's interesting because as you were reading the Sarah book on the call this week, I had an awareness for myself because inside of the story that you read was like this little boy that had been mangled and he was getting scars and like is he going to have scars from this accident that he was in or something? And then talking to higher consciousness, well, only if you believe that you will get scars or only if there's like guilt or shame around this process or the scarring. And I remembered in middle school and high school, I was like made fun of for acne. And I had strangers come up to me in the grocery store telling me how to fix my acne. And every person around me was like telling me how to fix it and do something about it, whether or I asked or not. Mostly I didn't ask. But then inside of like trying to fix it, like popping them or like doing something to fix it, I had a lot of acne scarring after the fact. And then hearing the story that you just shared on Wednesday, I was like, oh, that's why the scarring happened, because there was so much like guilt and shame around like my face or how I looked or how I present, like having it in the first place. And I can definitely see that for like myself and then for other women who may experience guilt and shame, whether it's around the thing that like the dis-ease that they have experienced or something else like about themselves and their bodies. And I'm curious inside of that, like I'm kind of unpacking this for myself this week as it's been like a hot topic for us.
Yeah.
And I understand wounded masculine is a very like guilt, shame, make wrong energy. And then divine feminine is very much like whole and accepting and in my power and there is nothing wrong and there is perfection. So for somebody who maybe in the same place of like, I feel like there's been a lot of guilt and shame and I want to be more in that power state and fully accepting of myself and my well-being, like what would you recommend as maybe a first step or a first question for them to start looking at that?
You know, this goes back a lot to just self-love in general, you know, like loving, you know, how quickly can you get to a place where you look in the mirror and you're like, I am the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like that would be the ultimate goal in my personal opinion, my humble opinion, because and there's no humble in that, right? There's no humility in that. This is like, you want power, stand in the mirror and be like, I am the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like I was chatting with a client last night. We brought up Wonder Woman. Like those women didn't think anything less of themselves, period.
Now, when you say that, I'm curious how ego is distinguished from that. Like having a big head or a big ego versus I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Big head, big ego, those are all judgments made up by patriarchy to keep you small.
Okay.
Yeah. Like if you're like, this isn't like I'm standing in a room full of people and I'm like, look at me, I'm the best and you fucking suck. That's not what I'm saying, right? Because that's where people think. We think there's only enough acknowledgement to go around for one person instead of being like, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. But so are you. You're fucking magical. Like, did you look in the mirror too? Like, you know, it's like if you and I are hanging out, I'm like, oh my God, your boobs so big. I'm like in appreciation, right? But like, I love my boobs too. You know, it's like, and because I love my boobs, this is like the funniest thing. Because I love my boobs, Cece says things to me like, it's wild what she says. She'll go, Mom, do you think I'll have small boobs one day or like medium size like you?
She said medium size.
I got medium.
There you go.
That was surprising for you, wasn't it? You were like, what's coming after? Because we know our boob story when we were growing up. We know that one.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean is like enough appreciation to go around. So I can be like, I'm the greatest thing, but like you're the greatest thing. The fact that people walk around and they don't think they're the greatest thing is like mind blowing to me. because you're like, we're like magic incarnated, but not just like magic. I can change the weather. Like your body is working on its own and it's like fucking magical. And like, you know, if you never get sick, like that's fucking magical. But if you get sick and then you get healed, like that's fucking magical. And like, do you ever think about the things your body, like the body is just like phenomenal. Half of us don't even know how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
You're just walking around with like some magical like thing and we don't know how it works. You know what I mean? So like the appreciation rather than the judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's like number one, because especially if you're a woman, like this is our time to embody the divine feminine. This is our time to activate that higher level, that higher consciousness. This is the time. So if you're like look in the mirror and you have like some judgment of how you look or what you've done and you're like, all you're doing is discounting and discrediting the magic that is ready to like incarnate on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So our job is to like fuck your humble pie. Like don't be humble. Fuck that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you literally got Cece and I shirts for Christmas. It says not aspiring to be humble.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? She wears that shit to school.
I love that.
Her teacher is like, I love her shirts. Right? It's like
Oh,
it's
cute.
like the nod to the liberalism, you know?
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Miss Kamala Harris.
That's right. Thanks, Miss Harris. And so you just go like just for a minute, if everybody embodied it, not I'm better than you, which is not what we're saying. If everybody embodied it, what kind of frequency would be birthed on the planet?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're out to do now.
Mm-hmm. If there was nothing to fix, nothing wrong with us, nothing to overcome, no problems to have with ourselves, with our bodies, with our experience of life, like how differently would that actually look for all of us?
And I think in every religious teaching, that is like the foundation too. Do you see what I'm saying? Like there is not religion like a construct, like the Catholic Church says women should know, like from the
At its core and at its heart.
100%. They're like, you were made in the image of God. Well, it said right there, I'm fucking God. And then they're like, be humble. You're like, but you said I was God and now I gotta be humble. I'm very confused. And like kids, they come out, they're not like, I'm not that good. No,
Kids are like, they think they're the shit.
100%.
I mean, I remember being a kid and I thought I was the shit. Something happened to make me think I wasn't the shit. But when I was a kid, it was all there.
100%. So like, what is the natural like inclination of our essence? Seems like it's to be the shit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
My kid, you don't humble her. She's got all of her magic. She's like, I know this, I'm gonna do this. And like, think about what happens when that's the energy you embody. You know, what do you attract then? You don't like, she attracts like, she's gonna make some fucking jewelry and then she's like, I'm gonna go sell it at the coffee shop, and she makes $135 one day.
Mm-hmm. And she's 9.
And she's 9. She just has ideas and then she just does them. She's like, this is what I'm doing. You're like, okay. And everybody around her better like get on board. Mm-hmm. And I tell you this, like I remember Glennon Doyle was talking about, I think it was Glennon Doyle. There was like a soccer game of kids or something, and a kid was very confident about themselves. She was like, who does she think she is? Right? And then she was like, wait, am I like combating with like a fucking child? What is my problem? That's because it's my issue.
Yeah.
I'm triggered by the confidence of a child. And she like did a check, right?
Yeah.
So she like checked herself. She was like, okay. So like most of our triggers about people being confident is like, it just
not
triggers
even
us.
about them.
It's about us. So like humility and being humble and all that was to sway us from standing tall, being all of us. And frankly, for you women out there, it's mostly because men can't handle all of us.
So then for women who may be experiencing imposter syndrome, or not feeling like they can have the confidence or do have the confidence, or that they belong in the spaces in which they're encompassing, whether it's in business or in life or
You and I talk
anywhere.
about this shit all the time, and I'm always like, what is imposter syndrome? I'm like defining, you're watching me and you're defining
Yeah.
it for me because I'm like, what does it mean?
It's women feel like they don't belong. Like they feel like an imposter. Like, let's say it's in business
Men
where,
probably too, some men, right?
no,
Just women? No, like
most,
women are only the ones with imposter syndrome. I'm learning. So
I
just
really don't think, if there are men listening to this and they've experienced imposter syndrome, please tell us.
yeah, I want to know. I want to know.
I have not met a man that had imposter syndrome.
Okay.
I have not seen it exist. I'm sure there is one out there
I'm
at
glad we're going
least.
to unpack this. I'm going to be very educated on the other side of this
Yeah.
imposter syndrome breakdown.
It's basically when a woman feels as though she doesn't belong in a space that she's encompassing. So I'm going to Google the definition real quick. So
Okay.
it is self-deception, essentially. So
Well, 100%.
let
We
me
started off
see.
with the word imposter.
You,
You don't feel like you belong in certain settings. Is that it?
yeah,
I'm
you don't
trying
feel
to
like you
see it.
belong in, like, especially for women in charge in big
Uh-huh.
spaces who may have their own business, or like
Uh-huh.
CEO, C-suite, like they feel
Uh-huh.
like they don't belong there. They don't actually have the expertise or the knowledge or
Okay.
the
Just stop right there.
ability.
Yeah. So you want to know what my advice would be? Because I got some advice.
Yes.
Great. If you are in the room, you're supposed to be in the room. And I know you're supposed to be in the room because you in the room. You're not supposed to be anywhere else. Right? So like that's like for me, that's how I view and see the world. I don't see where you shouldn't be somewhere because literally if you're there, that you have alignment to be there. So all I know how to work on is energy and alignment and all that, right? So I actually don't know. I don't know like where the fuck else you supposed to be? You in that room. Like
Hmm.
so tell me more.
It's an internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud.
Like that seems ridiculous. The fact that we're even talking about imposter
And I
syndrome
think
seems
that's
really
what most
ridiculous.
women see, that it's like, oh my gosh, it feels ridiculous, or I know it's ridiculous. I know I shouldn't feel this way,
Mm-hmm.
but I still do. I feel like most women are pretty
Okay.
self-aware of it,
Right.
but they don't
Okay.
know what to do about it.
Well, you have to, like, my biggest piece of advice then, if I was coaching somebody, I would say you have to see that you've built up some framework on where you should be and where you shouldn't be, what you're allowed to have and what you're not allowed to have. But like you listen to the input from other people, you're internalizing that. But that's not what's really happening, right? So if I could deconstruct and like get you out of your head, what I would show you is you're literally in the room with the CEO, or you're in the room as the CEO leading the company, or you got the new job. Like you're literally in whatever the thing is, you know? And if somebody's like, well, I don't have it yet, or I'm afraid of, and you go, okay, so you have fear. So what? Like put your big girl pants on and like go get in the fucking room. Like we want to because what you want to do is you want to like take all of the significance out of it. And the only
Hmm.
way that you can do that is like to practice, to practice, to build the muscle, to do something over and over again. That's what's going to alleviate that like significance. Because mostly you're just living in your head. You're living in a bunch of judgments, a bunch of other people's point of views. You've made up something about who you are and what you do. Like this is the thing that kills me about women in they call it like VC funding. When women will come to the table for venture capital funding, okay? And they will have the prototype, everything worked out, and they will go to get funding and fail epically Men they just go in, they're like, I got this great idea. They did fuck all work and they receive more funding than women. Okay.
What do you mean by fail epically?
What
Like they
did
just don't get the funding?
Yeah. Yeah. Women just don't get any funding compared to men.
But they don't fail at their presentation necessarily.
No, they fucking
Okay.
rock everything.
Okay.
Right. So we're over prepared. We're smarter than everything else. Right. And then we're like, oh, I don't fit in. So you have an alignment issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I've seen the same for women that apply for jobs where they
They
may
won't apply.
they won't apply or they don't put themselves out there because they don't mark off 100% of what the application is looking for, but men will apply to jobs where they may qualify for 60% of it and still get the job.
100%. And then they did a study on young kids in coding classes.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say, okay, we'll code this out. And the girls would do it. They wouldn't get the right code. They would delete all their work. And the teacher would walk up and be like, why aren't you working? And they just thought the girls weren't working. The girls would delete it if it wasn't perfect. The young boys in the coding classes would have all their problems, be like, submit it and be like, I don't know, it's like half good. So it literally is in like every spread known to man. That's why my typical coffee mug says, may you have the confidence of a mediocre white man.
And how old were those kids? Those were like middle schoolers, right?
I think they were like middle high schoolers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were taking
So it's ingrained in us even like as that young, as the way that we look at how we perform or do or don't do things, like the perfectionism gene almost.
I mean, look, this is about deconstructing the patriarchal influences. Like that's what we're here to do right now. You know, our mothers didn't have all the knowledge, wherewithal, and know-how to like deconstruct. They were like, I get to go to work, sweet. I get to start owning a home, cool. Like there were just new things and opportunities. Now we get to be like, the system's fucking rigged. Like, you know, so the imposter, so to go back to your like original question, like the imposter syndrome, right, is like you feel like you don't belong. So you're believing the construct that you don't belong, rather than like you'll find people who are crazy successful, women, because they're like, I fucking belong. Okay. So that's an alignment issue, right? So we could believe the reality that we don't belong. We could follow all that evidence, or we could shift into the reality like we do belong. Like Sarah Blakely is a great example. She was like, Spanx fucking rock, and I'm going to get them in the store. And I think she went to Nordstrom's and just put a rack of Spanx in. They wouldn't she couldn't get on corporate, like nobody wanted her shit. She just like put it in. There was no imposter syndrome there. Okay. And Sarah Blakely's history, the family used to sit around the table and her dad, every night for dinner, they would talk about what they failed at. And it deconstructed her notion of success. She wasn't looking to be perfect. She was looking to fail at a bunch of shit because her dad deconstructed it for her. You know, you're like, give that dad a pat on the back. But you see what I'm saying? So if you're aligned with I don't belong, that's more patriarchy or wiring. If you want to change it, come join my program. I'll change it with you and for you.
And I wanted to bring imposter syndrome into this because as we're talking about the guilt and shame and the ways that that shows up in like that wounded masculine shows up in our bodies and in our well-being and block our well-being, like that's part of it. And that is an energy that blocks our well-being when we're looking at dis-ease in the body or the different things that show up inside of dis-ease in the body, right?
Yeah.
And now focusing more on divine feminine energy, being able to embody more of that power and not being humble, but standing in like, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. I do belong in this room. Like I know my power. I know my force. I know my expertise, and like I'm bringing it to the table.
Yeah.
And what I can see like from just our conversation as a whole today is embodying all of the different energies of divine feminine, whether it be like soft and sweet and like whisper, or whether it be like strong, powerful tornado force out to disrupt and out to change, out to change something.
Yeah. And look, and the reason I can be so fierce is because I'm so aligned and I'm so clear. You know, like I know why I'm here. I know what I'm here to do. I know exactly why all my relationships are connected. I know my role with each of them. And so I can just like step in, and I'm willing to do it. So there's like a willingness too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So for someone who maybe this could be the first time they're hearing about divine feminine energy, maybe they don't quite know what it
Did they
is, and
hang
they're
up yet?
thanks
They're
for
like,
staying on with us. If
they're
you,
like, what the fuck?
yeah, maybe they don't know what it is, or they're just dipping their toe in, like trying to embody it now and what that looks like and incorporating it into their life. Like, what would you say to them as a first step?
I think you have a PDF that works really good. Like, I think you have to start distinguishing. And I think that's, you know, we did that. We've done courses on distinguishing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting clear that feminine and masculine, it's a first step. Feminine and masculine are different. Each one has a toxic trait. Each one has a divine trait. And so that in and of itself is like an amazing foundation to start to look from. And so if you're like on this path and you're like, what is divine feminine? And you like start kind of playing with it. Ronnie, will you give them some PDF or something like?
I'll put it in the description.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. But like, you know, so if you look at it and you're like, okay, divine feminine is receiving, and you're like, and you start playing with it, you're like, okay, well, so then divine masculine is kind of a doing. The toxicness of both, like the woundedness, is when I burn myself out from doing too much because I was in toxic masculine. Then I burn myself out and I'm like, oh my God, I need help. And then you go into wounded feminine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, well, what is the divine feminine and masculine of those traits, right? And it's like, well, divine feminine asks and receives. That's what divine feminine does. And divine masculine, like, does the exact task to get the exact thing done. But there's all ease, flow, connectedness, and higher consciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is actually like the best place to start, because you start deconstructing, like, which one am I in and which one is my go-to and how do I manipulate a situation? You know, like if I burn out and I can't, like I'm so tired I can't lift my arms and then somebody has to come in and help and save me, that is a wounded trait, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm actually manipulating things around me. Okay, now everybody in the comments get really mad because I said manipulating, and
I was going to ask too, because when you were saying earlier, willing to be any energy to manipulate the outcome that you want, can you describe how that's different from manipulation?
Yeah. So one has a consciousness and one doesn't. Okay. So if I'm saying I'm willing to be any energy, I'm always saying that with consciousness. Okay, I'm willing to be fierce. I'm willing to have direct conversations. I'm willing to stop an energy quicker than anybody else. Like if the train's off the tracks, I'm coming in and we're stopping it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm willing to be any energy to do that, to change course. And we could say that the changing of that course is manipulation. Okay. The unconscious manipulation that people do, which is like, I'm trying to get you to do something, which means I'm trying to get you to do something. I am trying to have my will overtake your will. That's a different kind of manipulation. So one is like about, and there are other energetic teachers out there that would talk about like manipulating energy. Okay, so go look up manipulating energy. It's different than manipulating people. We're not talking about manipulating people, right? So when I'm learning at like this core study, it's like, oh, well, if you say, okay, so if you guys want to go manipulate men, this is what you can do. Ready? I'm going to give you a little takeaway. Okay. When a man does something for you and you go, oh my God, thank you so much. You're my hero.
I've seen that.
That was what I was taught. Okay. That is manipulating them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, so many layers. Okay. But you could do that, but that's manipulating them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ain't no woman think you're a hero for fixing a toilet. Fuck all. That is not like that. Do you know what I mean? That's like on a different level. To put him on a pedestal for fixing a toilet. I only say that because my guy's over here fixing a toilet right now. I got a handy guy fixing a toilet. That's what's happening in the other room. Okay. So that's manipulation of people.
Can you give an example of manipulation of energy?
Yeah, manipulation of energy is like going back to changing the direction, right, of something or creating something. So, and being any energy to create something. So if you hop on a phone call, maybe you want to bitch out. It's like I'm doing a house remodel. Maybe you want to bitch out the Lowe's team. But you know, like bitching out the Lowe's team isn't going to change the energy, but being really nice and kind and like seeing their point of view, maybe that actually changes the energy. So where you might want to spout off and be a bitch doesn't work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. What you want to look at is what energy is going to get me where I want to go and being willing to be in the energy. So when I want to pop off and be a bitch, maybe it's time to be nice. And sometimes when I want to be nice, or I'm like, God, I want more bees with honey. But you're like, if I pop off right now, like maybe that works. Do you see what I mean? So it's really a dance in the space, a knowing and an attunement to change like what is the outcome of this, right?
Okay. And I want to ask one more clarifying question because I want to make sure I get this and I want to make sure the listeners get this too. So like
we went real big today. We went on all the topics.
I know. So when we're talking about manipulation of the energy in the example of your ex-husband and getting him off the property, like call
that a fierce redirection, but yes.
Okay, fierce redirection. So
Fine.
like in that example, the manipulation of the energy, you're looking at what's going to get him to get off my lawn and have me have my peace back, essentially. Yeah. You're not necessarily manipulating him to be a certain way or do something for you, but you are looking at like, this is my space, this is my peace. Like what can I be and what can I do to get my peace back?
Yeah, and I'm willing to let things escalate quickly. Mostly because I address it with, hey, this doesn't work. Hey, you're doing this. And I watch non-responsiveness and I escalate as quickly as I can to have the result almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Most people won't do that, right? Same thing with the dude in the food court, right? So I'm like, you talk to people like this? This is weird. Like, you know, I'm an energetic coach. What are you talking to me about this for? Like, this is so weird. I'm like, actually, I mean, it went on for a long while. And I was like, actually, I'm unwilling to have you keep talking to me like this. I'm so unwilling. I'm going to actually start to cause a scene. Like I talked through it and then I escalated it to the scene. Because for me, I'm like, you can't go around talking to people like this. And most women don't want to cause a scene. Mm-hmm. And I will
they fawn or they placate or they're like, oh, it's just what they do or what can I do about it? Yeah.
And if you look, I'm like, I caused a scene and then I left. So I'm not like in some reaction. I'm like, I'm telling you, you can change this. You're not changing it. Great. You should understand this action has a reaction. I'm about to show you. You should see that if you keep doing this with people, other people should cause scenes. Like this should like stick with you. Now I'm going to do it, elevate it. Everybody in the place is going to look at us. It's going to be great. And then I'm going to leave. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's a very conscious, like, again.
Escalation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I felt really good about myself.
I feel like you should teach a master class on how to be like bold and fierce because who better?
They wouldn't do anything about it. You know our people. They're like, I like comfort. You're like, we got to clear some more energy then.
I guess so. Well, anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with before we close out the episode for today?
just, look, the divine feminine is like, this is our time to embody and embrace, to expand, to come together, to be connected, and to change it on the planet. It's literally our birthright. It is who we are. It is like why we incarnated. And this activation takes something, because we've been told that we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, we should do things differently, we don't speak the right tone, we don't say the right words, and that's where we feel like we're in a pretzel. So this is like the unpretzeling, if you will, and like giving everybody the go ahead to like be more of themselves. You're not an imposter. If you're in the fucking room, there's no imposter. You're aligned. You're in the room. You're at the table. You're doing the thing. Like, own it. Embody it. You're not going to be too much. If somebody thinks you're too much, it's because they're too little. Let them be too little somewhere else. Let them vomit their too little on you, whatever, and then move on and go be too much. And if you want to be too much with somebody, you can come be too much with me. I would love it. I love lots. Let's be lots together.
Let's be big energies together.
Yeah.
Fuck your smallness.
Fuck your smallness. Leave it at the back door. Push it over the cliff.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your insights and wisdom and bold, fierce energy today. Thanks for those who listened till the end. Even if you didn't know what divine feminine energy was, you're still here, and that's all that matters. We'll see you next week. Until then, keep making magic, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in with us. We know that time is a precious resource, and we're grateful you'd spend an hour of yours shifting your perspective and expanding your divine feminine power. If today's conversation resonated with you, help us grow. Rate the show, subscribe, and keep following for more. Remember, we are here every Tuesday with new episodes. But until then, find me on LinkedIn. It's my favorite way to connect. If you want to dive deeper into the Divine Success Method, start with our training series, The Sacred Success Code. Specifically designed for women to reclaim their time, energy, and power, this is a great first step toward divine success without sacrifice. Normally $249, you can use the code POD222 for 7 days of free access since you're listening here. Or if you're ready to work with a coach to fully access your divine feminine capacities, schedule a free discovery session with us. Links are in the description. Until next time, keep honoring your divine feminine magic.